What kind of impacts are we going to be expecting when we get this personalized healthcare?
It will improve. And I think we reference it. It's a sociological approach to making these changes at multiple levels. But even like if you look at diabetes, losing as little as 10% of your body weight makes a significant difference. That is a quantifiable improvement in health for individuals.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. I'm your AI host, Mark Verbenkov's deepfake avatar, and this is episode number 214. This episode explores the rapid evolution of personal health technology and how AI is revolutionizing preventive care, wellness, and chronic disease management. From wearables and continuous glucose monitoring to data-driven health insights, the discussion highlights the tools and approaches empowering individuals to take control of their health, while also emphasizing the importance of training healthcare providers to leverage these technologies effectively. Listeners will gain insight into the intersection of technology, real-world evidence, and medical research, including the challenges of translating innovative ideas into clinical trials and scalable solutions. The conversation also covers emerging applications such as anosmia detection for early disease identification, rare disease treatment using AI, and the creation of global data repositories to normalize and compare research findings. Richard shares forward-looking perspectives on how AI and data aggregation will improve patient outcomes, streamline healthcare delivery, and accelerate innovation in the coming years. This episode offers a thought-provoking look at the transition from reactive sick care to proactive personalized health management. Additionally, listeners will hear about practical steps for improving personal wellness, including leveraging existing technologies to track lifestyle, nutrition, and sleep. Richard's insights underscore the value of combining individual accountability with societal-level changes while exploring how AI can uncover patterns in health data that would otherwise remain hidden. This discussion provides actionable ideas for anyone interested in improving their health, developing new medical technologies, or understanding the future of healthcare innovation. Now, a little bit about today's guest. Richard Kedziora is the co-founder of Estenda Solutions, a leading company specializing in custom software development, data analysis, and AI for healthcare and medical companies. With a remarkable journey spanning over 30 years, he possesses a deep understanding of designing, developing, and deploying successful projects. Mr. Kedziora received his MBA from Westchester University and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Duquesne University, where he received the Excellence in Computer Science Award. His work with clients has won multiple awards, including a Hims Davies Award in 2017, and he recently received the Health 2.0 Outstanding Leadership Award. Well, RJ, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast today. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So the way that I start every episode is asking a little bit about your journey into the work that you're doing now. So was there kind of an event? Was there some momentous occasion, or was it just kind of an organic, natural life path that brought you into the work that you're doing?
I guess it depends on how far back you go. I did go get lucky in 7th grade back in the 80s. My parents bought me an IBM PC Junior personal computer. Played lots of games, and definitely had the Atari as well. Played lots of games, but I was always fascinated with the idea of what I could make the computer do. So started programming at a very, very early age. Went on and got a comp sci degree in college and came up through the programming software development ranks. But I've always loved problem solving, figuring out the next solution and what's that challenge. And as the early 2000s came around and everyone realized the world didn't end in the year 2000, it's like, okay, what am I going to do next? Where do I want to apply my talents? What problems do I want to solve? How can I make a difference in the world? I developed accounting systems, inventory management systems, even somewhere along the lines of railroad car scheduling system. It's great to, hey, you need that railroad car to pick up the steel. I was working for U.S. Steel at the time. In healthcare is really what rang true to me. It's the last industry to really embrace the idea of data. Lots of technology in healthcare and pharma from a drug development perspective, but it's the last industry to really embrace the idea of data. So that was the impetus, the driving force behind starting Astenda, my current company, back in 2003. And we've been going strong ever since then.
Awesome. Could you, that's a perfect natural segue into what you're doing. I do maybe want to talk about the context of your industry at some point, but maybe just a quick introduction to your company and what you guys are doing for the...
Yeah. So Astenda Solutions is a professional services company focused on custom software development, data, and AI projects. Everything revolves around AI these days, of course. But digital health is a very broad category. So what is digital health, and where do we focus? We focus on patient care solutions, things that help improve the health and wellness of our fellow humans. So diabetes, chronic care conditions, weight loss management, new algorithm development, a lot of work in wearables. How do we gather data and make use of it for better decisions?
So I've had a couple guests come on over the past couple of years talking, about this field in general. I've walked away from these interviews thinking the amount of changes, improvements that's going on in like personal health specifically is just mind-boggling. Like it's also very motivating. It makes me want to live, certainly for the next 50 years so I can live for the next 200 years, right? This seems to be a trend of this, longevity curve increasing. Is there anything in particular that you are more excited about than other things?
You're absolutely right in saying there is an explosion of wearables, of data, a movement to personal accountability. Current administration is pushing the idea of make America healthy. There's some challenges there, but some really good things as well. They are pushing the idea of wearables, good or bad. Be interesting to see. I've tracked with a lot of them, wear a lot of them over the years. I bought the Muse headband, which tracks EEG waves. And it's designed to promote better meditation, help you fall asleep better. But imagine bringing that information to your doctor. What are they going to do with it? But yeah, that's where this change in the data, there's just so much change for that potential. My personal goal is 100 plus with a good quality of life. For the longest time, I just said 100, and someone finally said, "Why just 100?" Right. I live here now, right? Yeah. Just keep on going. It's the technology that's going to make it possible to better learn and understand about what's going on inside the body as an individual. And I do race triathlons, and metrics is a big part of that, but you don't have to do that. I'm the first person to tell you don't have to do what I do. It's go out and walk. And one of the new devices on market is continuous glucose monitoring devices for people without diabetes. So if you have diabetes, these devices are essential to understand how your body reacts to the food you eat, to your exercise, to medication, to stress, to sleep, all of those things. It helps you better understand what's happening. If you don't have diabetes, these are meaningful devices and information also. So I know the science. I've developed these solutions. I've developed algorithms. I know that if I walk 10 minutes after I go out and eat, it's going to make a difference in how my body processes what I just ate. It's a powerful moment when you see how the numbers actually play out. So I've run this experiment of just, myself, I'll eat a meal and then go sit on the couch. It's just really easy to do. The next night I'll eat the same meal and then go for a 10-minute walk afterwards. And you can see the difference that simple walk makes. I'm not running, I'm not doing anything crazy, going for a walk around the block. It happens with my wife, I love to get out there, and it makes a difference. So yeah, very excited about what that possibility of the technology.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into a couple things. One thing that you said before, which I don't think I've talked about on the podcast before, which maybe we should double click on here, is you said you can have, a bunch of data with, your Muse headband, for instance, and bring it to your doctor, and he's going to be like, well, what can I do with this? Is that also a large part of the challenge of this industry, is that the medical health providers maybe aren't up to date with what you can do with the data? They're not trained to use the data. They're certainly intelligent and they've been trained on certain things, but with all of this new tech, new services, et cetera, it's maybe over their heads, or they're just not trained. Like, could you elucidate that a little bit?
It is absolutely a challenge, I think, from two perspectives. One that you called out, that they're just not educated, trained on the use of this data, this information. In a lot of cases, the data is so new, nobody's even sure what to do with it. So the EEG, the Muse headband that I wear, is a great device, but it's not a medical grade EEG. So you're not making medical diagnoses or determining, any disease or condition based on that data. So what can a doctor really deduce from that? They got to go read the science, understand that device. The second aspect of that is we really have a sick-based system in the world, in healthcare. Like, we call it healthcare, but it's really sick care. And so if you go to your doctor, you're lucky if you get 10 minutes during that visit, and then they got to go on to the next patient. So they don't even have time, even if they have the desire to help you out and dig deeper into that knowledge. They very often don't have the time to be able to do that. So multiple aspects. But I think this is where the technology, the AI, really helps start changing that conversation. It enables me as an individual to better understand and use that data. Today, yes, still, and you'll hear me caveat a lot, you still need to talk to your doctor about this. Don't rely 100% on what the AI says, but it is getting better and better to understand that. And if you don't understand what is coming out of the AI systems, or your doctor, what your doctor says, so if you say break your leg and go to the office and get casted up, and you're probably not going to remember what the doctor said at the end of that visit, or the nurse said at the end of the visit. And usually they're giving you, take home notes in an email and to follow up like that. But if you don't understand that, ask AI to explain it to you like you're in 5th grade. You're still not getting it, like 4th grade, like 3rd grade. It will come up with analogies to help you better understand what's happening and how to, provide better care for yourself to make a difference. So it is a powerful opportunity to help the doctors and us individually as people.
So, I'm hearing this and I'm thinking to myself, okay, one, this is fascinating, it's powerful, but it also puts the onus on the individual to improve their own personal health. And to me, if I'm extrapolating into the future a little bit, to me it seems like, well, we're going to see what we're seeing today is people that are already taking their own health into their own hands and getting, what's the term? They're personal hackers or biohackers, right? They're, maybe that's a little bit extreme, but people that really take their health seriously, and then those people that just go to the doctor all the time whenever something comes up. So if the potential future of personal health care is more on you as an individual, to me it seems like there's going to be an even larger schism between those that take their healthcare already seriously and those that just kind of go through life without doing that.
The healthcare system has to change with this. And that's where I'm excited by what Maha might be able to bring to the table, that pushing this idea. I think of it as personal accountability for my health. because so much of what happens to all of our health outside of that doctor's office and that doctor's visit, what do you eat? What do you do from a movement perspective? What does your sleep look like? I love a good cocktail in the evening, but it's not the greatest thing to drink a lot. And nowadays, even the current research is like any drink is bad for you. But yes, I'm still going to enjoy that cocktail. It's about that personal accountability. It's we need to drive that of just, okay, I'm sick. I can just go to the doctor and they'll fix me up. They'll give me a medication to fix that problem. The idea of driving behavior change is incredibly challenging because it's a multi-layered approach. It's at the individual level, but also as the government, the healthcare systems, the corporations out there market products and services out there to the community. I've seen a lot of interesting reels, videos online where people have taken, say, Coke, the drink Coca-Cola, which isn't a good thing for you, tons of sugar, it's not worth it. But then they rebrand it to either be like this great health product, like full of protein, or this all natural product kind of thing. And it's the same thing in the can, but they shifted how they marketed. And that's just a powerful opportunity. So how do we shift the marketing at that level, at the very corporate level, to drive that personal accountability, to drive more healthy behaviors, and then in the individual to understand what's happening there.
Interesting. Okay, so both a top-down and bottom-up approach are kind of needed for us to take advantage of this. So that's kind of on the sociological and I guess industrial side of things. What about on the technological side of things? So you started off by saying, yes, there's this explosion happening in this industry with the tech advances. Are there, obviously there are. So what are some of the challenges on the tech side of things to make this utopia happen?
I think the first challenge they're largely overcome, but sort of thinking of my history in the industry of the past 20 plus years, the technology is fading into the background, which is the sort of the first big hurdle. It's, how do you track your heart rate variability, or sleep? How do you track all of this information? I think that's very much a solved problem. We know how to do that. There's still, they're working on better methods of doing this, but I think it's just faded into the background now. It's like there's various rings on market, your Apple Watch, the Samsung watches, they track this information and you're just not aware of it doing that anymore. So that's the first thing that I think is a huge advancement over the last couple of decades, that we can get access to this information. We don't have to think about acquiring it anymore. Now the challenge is understanding that information and how do you make use of that information. That's where we're still working through it, and how do we make it personal to you as an individual. There's a lot of good information, and I look at it all the time, in general, like at a population level, it's like, okay, a lower heart rate is better for you. Your blood pressure, you don't want a high blood pressure, is better for you. Here are things you can change in your lifestyle, eating, movement, sleep, to be better, to lower that heart rate, to lower your blood pressure, lower your cholesterol, approaches to it. But where we need to take this is that individual, based on what's happening to me as an individual, my patterns and trends, is sort of that next leap in understanding that. And again, the callback, sort of the AI helping do that, that's really what's going to enable it. People can't do it at scale. There's not enough medical professionals, there are not enough people to provide the care, the advice, the coaching to be able to do that. So you need to develop the tools and the technology that can scale reliably and provide that advice and that feedback to individuals. And
what kind of impacts are we going to be expecting when we get this personalized healthcare? Obviously this is something that I've talked about a number of times on the podcast, and I think for me it's one of the more exciting things to hear about, right? So once we get these, some sort of AI system to be able to tell you, okay, well,
eat this kind of food, sleep at this time, wake up at this time, avoid this, avoid that. Are we going to see like a pretty substantial improvement in our healthcare, or in our health, I should say? Obviously, it depends on the person whether they're already working out or not. But do you have like a rough idea of like the percentage of improvement that we can get from our lives?
I don't. I'd love to say that I have a percentage of improvement. It will improve, and I think we referenced it. It's a sociological approach, top down, bottom up approach to making these changes at multiple levels. But even like if you look at diabetes, losing as little as 10% of your body weight makes a significant difference. The GLP-1 drugs that are on the market that are driving so much weight loss, that is a quantifiable improvement in health for individuals. You don't have to, if you're overweight or obese, you don't have to, back down to, 3% body fat or something crazy. You don't need to be a bodybuilder. Lose 10% and you'll feel better. My own sort of health journey, when I got married in the late 90s kind of thing, I was pushing 225, 230, and I'm 5'11". So I wasn't obese, but I was definitely on, the higher, I wasn't healthy, but I also, what was interesting, I didn't know it. And then my wife, bless her, she helped me start eating better. And, and don't drink, I was drinking a lot of high C and different, fruit drinks at the time kind of thing. Cause it's like, I thought they were healthy and they're not. So a lot of diet changes and starting to exercise made a world of difference. And I lost 50 pounds. And been able to, with my exercise, maintain that, over time now kind of thing. So I'm not recognizable in those pictures. But what's fascinating is I didn't realize it at the time. So that's where I think that bottom down or bottom up and top down approach really comes into play to make people aware of this, that even a 10%, improvement can make a difference.
And I guess with some sort of app that comes out, if it's not already out there, a lot of this can be gamified, right? So the psychological aspect of it can be in there. So whether you realize it or not, you can just kind of play a game, if you will, and over some time get a lot healthier. But you need some sort of AI involved in this process.
That's what's going to allow it to be really individualized to a unique user. I ride Peloton all the time. The number of badges, like for 5 years now, and the number of badges I have on the Peloton now are just like, okay, whatever. I got a new badge. So, gotta change your approach. But that's part of it too, is having different approaches for different individuals. There is no one size fits all. Different people have to, so gamifying for some is absolutely the answer, the solution kind of thing. Others, it might take other approaches.
Could you talk to me a little bit more about exactly what you guys do and how you're now involved in this entire industry?
Yes. So we work with a combination of either startups or usually R&D organizations, groups within larger corporations, and helping them develop new products, new algorithms, new ways of looking at data and analyzing that information in terms of improving patient health and wellness. And we're so much part of that process. We've been lucky, some of our customers have even put our names on patents, which just goes to demonstrate how much we are part of the process and not just like, here, do X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, what do we really want to do? How can we make a difference? And a key aspect of us being involved in those early stages in these healthcare applications, healthcare systems, is that it's one thing for a bunch of people to sit around a room and come up with great ideas and talk to patients. Okay, what do you think is going to work? It then has to usually go to some sort of clinical trial and make sure it actually does make a difference. We work with some really smart MDs, some really smart PhDs, but until you actually get it out there in the hands of the individuals, doesn't make a difference. is where the challenge is. And then we iterate on that. The first version, has good results. Okay, let's iterate on it. Let's make it better. The first version, it's not having great results, not achieving what we thought. Okay, how do we change this? How do we tweak it to improve on it? Combination of grant-based work. We're fortunate we just got an SBIR grant, which is a small business innovative research grant in the National Institutes of Health for a smell test repository. This is a fascinating project for us. One, it's challenging to get these types of awards, so we're really lucky to do this. We partner with the Monell Chemical Senses Center here in Philadelphia, and a second company called Ursula Health that has a smell test. And it's one of those things that's been around for a while. The loss of smell could be an indicator of health conditions. But until everybody started losing their sense of smell with COVID, it really didn't get its due. And now everyone's like, hey, wait a minute, and starting to pay attention to it. And so we're creating a global data repository focused on this data and information. How can we gather the results of all of these tests that are doing all of this research data, aggregating it together, normalizing it such that we can compare one study against another, and find new interesting patterns and trends that in that data. And not because of our work, because we're in very early stages, but in other research in this area, they are seeing that could be an indicator of Alzheimer's, of Parkinson's, of concussions, issues with the brain. When you lose your sense of smell, it might have a deeper meaning. Go talk to your doctor. Yeah. You can take one of these smell tests, and there's in the US, it's called the 2030 healthy goals. They have these goals of, where do we want to be in 2030? Increasing the amount of smell tests that are done as part of routine clinical practice is one of those. So we're hoping that this helps drive that adoption as we go. They are very early stages, ideating, developing solutions. And then, if it gets to that far, we can take it. We are what's called ISO 13485 certified, which basically means we have a good, well-documented, structured quality management system as we develop our software. That's what the FDA and other global regulatory bodies look for when they're reviewing and approving something that is being developed and brought to market. We have those qualifications. So it's challenging work because it's cutting edge. Like we referenced the Muse headband and the EEG. Like, what do you do with that data? It's like we worked on other projects where it's like, okay, what do we do with this data? We need to gather it first. We need to get it first and get it in large quantities. Some of those early clinical trials, they'll work, with 10, 15 people. It's like, okay, this is showing promise. Now let's expand it and to larger and larger populations. But even if you do have a product that's out there on the market and you want to then understand how it's being used, and so that's an important aspect, gathering that like real world evidence data and doing the analysis of that information is very powerful.
One thing with regards to this real world data, so you mentioned clinical studies. Is there like a growing acceptance of not using clinical studies, but using the kind of wealth of data of, for instance, just people wearing, let's use the Muse headband as an example, not as, as robust and as rigorous as a clinical trial, but as, I don't know, like initial evidence that something is happening. Is this a growing, should I say, accepted format of gathering data and of, pointing to something that's real?
It is. And because we have the tools and the technology now to start gathering that data at scale and making meaningful use of that information, yes, it's starting to be used more and more. Clinical trials are still absolutely essential. It allows you to isolate, to specific variables and make sure what you're seeing is really being impacted by, what you're actually looking to experiment with. But when you go beyond that and you're gathering this real world evidence, you just start learning more information because of the vast amount of populations and users. We are still, in the US, still, when you think about medical research, still challenged to recruit women. Like women are still underrepresented in clinical trials, unfortunately.
let alone other minority populations. And the institutions and the governments and they are pushing to, expand that. But it's slow to happen. So yes, we're going to include as many of these different subgroups as you can. But then when you're out in the real world, it gets, I was going to say infinite, not infinite, obviously, but it expands significantly. So you start learning more and more about different populations.
Okay. My next question, I'm not going to formulate it too well. It's a tricky one. So you were talking about losing your sense of smell as an early test for, say, Alzheimer's, if I remember correctly, right? Is that a kind of a well-known thing that's been around for a long time, or is that a reasonably new thing that people have figured out?
It is a reasonably new thing that has been teased out of the data. And it's not a definite by any means, just as people are listening and, like, hey, I can't smell too well kind of thing. It is not it is a rough correlation, not causation. It's not like, okay, this is going to happen now kind of thing. But yeah, it could be a marker of like, okay, let's and do a few more tests. And are there lifestyle changes we can make to help offset that? Are there medications that we can take to delay potential impacts, down the road? Early indicators.
Okay, perfect. So my question is going to be a lot easier to formulate now. So, if this is a new thing that's come about, and I'm assuming due to, some new data analysis helped figure this out, is it, am I correct in assuming that as we gather more and more data about, populations and individuals themselves, we are going to start to come up with new understandings that will lead us to better health practices in general? And have there been any of these apart from this, smell test that you can talk about over the last, say, 5 years?
So yes, we're going to see this more and more from a couple different perspectives. One is just easier to get this data and aggregate it together. It's still not as easy as I would like. That is one of the things we work with in companies, is integrating with the electronic medical record systems to be able to bring together so that device data and other clinical data, labs, medications, and that is technically a solved problem, but policies and procedures and us humans usually put up barriers and make it difficult to achieve that.
Right.
And you do want to anonymize the data to make it available for those researchers. But yeah, we are capturing more and more information, but you and I as individuals can't comprehend that, can't see the patterns in the data that the AI that has huge amounts of memory, huge capabilities to be able to tease that out and find patterns and trends. Like, there are research projects now, which is just really fascinating me, slightly aside from healthcare, but to be able to communicate with like dolphins and whales. Like, you and I are never going to be able to figure that out, but they are starting to have conversations with dolphins and whales now because they're intelligent creatures, and the AI can figure out the patterns in their vocal patterns, which is astounding. In healthcare, it's the same thing. As we start gathering all of this information about individuals and then genetic information, phenotypic information, it just opens up a world of possibilities to see larger patterns and trends. One of the interesting use cases of AI in where this is coming into play is rare diseases. So from two aspects, and they're usually difficult to diagnose because they're rare. Like, if you're a physician, you haven't seen this. So it takes a lot of tests, a lot of thought process, a lot of conversations with your colleagues to help diagnose, these rare conditions because they're rare. But then there's, from the commercial side of things, there's not a lot of incentive to develop a specific drug for the rare condition because there's not a huge market. But there are various AIs out there now they're being used to find secondary use cases for drugs on market already that apply to these rare cases. fascinating use case. It's, individuals now, and, it does affect a large percent of the population, but they all have these niche, rare diseases, and now they're getting their due because of what AI can do and find these patterns and trends in the larger data.
That's very cool. So, looking forward then, over the next 3 to 5 years, we can expect a lot of these, well, whether it's secondary use cases for current drugs or new, unique things that we didn't know about the human body that we can now target and say, hey, this will make you healthier, this will, fix this disease, etc. I want to ask a question about like the general personal healthcare opportunities for people, or capability might be a better term. Like, I think the ultimate goal is, you wake up, you look at the mirror, you press your thumb on the mirror, and it takes a, skin cell or something like that, and it tells you, okay, well, don't eat this today. You had too much to drink last night. So, it'll just give you kind of a plan for the week, if you will, right? Like that's the ultimate thing. Maybe 10 years away, maybe a little bit longer than that. How, like, as an individual over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, what can we expect as far as, our own personal capability of interacting with all of this cool tech, apps, etc.?
I think we will see more wearable technology. Cost will come down, which is good. Fades into the background, which makes it easier to access. And I think as we, as a population, get older and we want to age in place, my parents are pushing 80, fortunately doing pretty good. But, at some point, they're going to need more care. Where do they want that to happen? They want to stay at home. They want to go to a different facility to get that care. They want to stay at home where they're very comfortable. That's where this technology is really going to go. It's going to enable that. It's going to enable this care outside of the four walls. We're all getting very used to the idea of telemedicine, telehealth, doctor getting on a Zoom call, and having this wearable data and information that fades into the background from a data collection perspective is a great opportunity. So think of your mother, your father, your grandparents that are at home, want to age in place. You could put a camera in there and watch them, but that's very intrusive. They want their privacy, kind of thing. There's technology in the market today that can be like, okay, my mother got up. My mother used the facilities. She turned on the coffee machine. She opened and closed the refrigerator. She turned the TV on. And the AI can understand that this is their normal pattern of behavior. So now when it deviates from that. Okay, pick up the phone, give her a call. Did she fall at home? And then call EMS because it's detected a fall and she hasn't gotten up. She didn't have to. You might remember, from years past, we wear the life alert thing around your neck and you pressed it. I fall and I can't get up.
Right.
The technology exists where, it just understands that. So that's going to become more powerful. And I think a lot of this technology, again, as it fades in the background, it starts using other things that we don't think about as being health markers. Typing on a keyboard, your speech patterns. The AIs, these technologies can detect patterns and drifts in that to understand, like, okay, you may not be doing so great. Hey, maybe we should call the doctor. Maybe we should call a loved one. You need a little assistance today. I wear various technology from a training perspective. It's like, today is not a good training day. You push really hard. You didn't get a good night of sleep. Take a day of rest. What I find fascinating, and this is where this technology still needs to improve. So it tells me that, but I also inherently know that is, one, I've been doing it for 20 years, but I feel tired. It's like, okay, take it a little easier today. But then the other days, it'll be like, go hard today. Like you're feeling great. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I did some serious weightlifting yesterday and I can't even like walk straight because my legs are so sore. But the technology can't detect that yet. So it's like we bring all these things together. It'll be able to generate a better picture of us as individuals to provide that very much more personalized information.
Yeah, super interesting. I think also this goes right back to one of the first things that you said. Right now we don't have healthcare, we have sick care. And I think if I understand everything that you're saying, we're going to move into a paradigm where it's preventative healthcare, right? So you might not, I mean, obviously people get sick, but I think fewer and fewer people will get sick because the symptoms or the early signs of you getting sick, whether it's severe or not, are going to be shown by these patterns in the data. And then you'll be able to take the right steps to avoid that, which is fascinating. And I think my question to you is, what happens to the healthcare industry once this comes to scale? Like, are doctors gone? Like, are hospitals gone? Are clinics gone? Like, what is going to happen, RJ?
That's the give and take of the challenge of moving from sick care to true wellness care because of that. So the industry is moving towards value-based medicine, which is just that, where they're being incentivized and contracts are being placed to keep populations healthier and out of the hospitals. But yeah, that is definitely a challenging. The hospital makes money when people come into the door and get procedures and surgeries, and a lot of times they are necessary, But yeah, if we can keep people out of that situation, we're so much better off. The U.S. has some of the, not even some, the highest medical costs in the first world, if not the rest of the world, and some of the worst outcomes. It's crazy when you see the charts in the graphs that depict like the cost versus the outcomes. The U.S. is not doing well at all. I don't think enough people realize that, which is where something just needs to change.
Right. So it can only get better. Well, I guess it could get worse, but it's most likely. Yeah. Most likely it'll get better. Super interesting. I mean, I think there's many other things that we can touch on. I see our time is winding down here today. Do you have any other things that the audience should be thinking about for the next 3 to 5 years? If maybe a question is, if you haven't gotten into not biohacking, but personal healthcare, like using these tools to track everything, wearables, etc. Do you think now's the time to start doing it, or is it better to wait a couple of years and when the technology is a little bit better? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the technology is sufficient. There's no time like the present. It is one of these ideas. It's like, January 1st, I'm gonna start today. Like, there's no reason that you can't start, today as we're recording this, or when it comes out. Start today. Make a difference in your life. Eat a little better. Go to sleep a little earlier. These things make a difference, a powerful difference. I'm evidence of that. I completely, lost a ton of weight. Actively competitive age group triathlon. I'm not going to win any, but I'm competitive in my age group. Eating better, moving more has made a difference in my life. In just my personal plug, I'm working on a book called Productive Harmony, which is all about this. And it's like, there's only 24 hours in a day. So time management should not be the first thing you're thinking about. You should think about energy management. So how do you sleep better, eat better, move more, reduce your stress kind of thing, gives you more energy throughout the day to be able to be effective at whatever you want to be effective and accomplish, whether it's life, family, whatever that may be, with your personal passion kind of thing. If you have more energy, you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very positive and kind of perfect way to end the podcast on. So thanks, RJ. I'll have your website and your LinkedIn up on the show notes. Any other places that you want people to follow or reach out?
LinkedIn is the best place to reach out. Me, I'm posting about this stuff every day at least. So it's fascinating. It changes every day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for the positive and motivating and kind of hopeful view of the future. It's sometimes the podcast can get a bit dark, but this one definitely looking forward to the future. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I had a great conversation.
Right. Well, thanks for listening to this week's Future Tech and Foresight podcast. If you like what you've heard here, there are, of course, a number of ways that you can support the podcast. The best way would be to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or give a rating on Spotify, which you can find a step-by-step explanation for on the futuretechandforesight.com website. Alternatively, feel free to leave a comment either on the episode show notes or the YouTube channel where you can see video recordings of the interviews. And finally, if you are part of an organization that is aware of the disruptive and transformational impact that emerging and future technologies will bring and want to know more, please get in touch to hear about the strategic foresight services that we offer and how we can help future-proof your organization and take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities available to survive and thrive in the future.
A lot of future-shocked people and future-shocked institutions in our society are simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.